Hello, everyone, and thanks everyone for joining this year's API Days London. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Kateryna Osadchenko, a tech writer and content designer. That's why I want to talk to you about DocOps in Fintech from a tech writer's perspective. I've been a tech writer for almost 6 years now, and I've delved into various industries and domains. And today I'll be delving into my experience with adopting DocOps for a payment provider that allows accepting card payments, other payment methods, and processing orders in one place through one's website. So that's the backstory, the setup that we'll be diving in today, and hopefully our experience with adopting DocOps will be insightful for you. We'll give you an example of where you can start from, or if you're already of a size and structure that you already have things set up for you in terms of automating documentation updates, API references updates. There's always a room for asking yourself a question: is there anything that I can be doing differently, or does everything works, or is there a different angle that I can be implementing or applying or trying out? So no matter if you're new to tech writing, automating documentation, or you're just developing APIs, I'm sure you'll find some insightful bits and pieces while we go. So buckle in. And before we go on, I'll kindly ask you to refresh our mutual understanding of what we mean by DocOps. So document operations, as we are widely address them now, aka DocOps, is a set of practices that works to automate and integrate the process of developing documentation, and I would add updating it, across engineering, product support, and technical writing teams. And that's exactly what we set out to do with my team, as over time we got bigger structure, bigger docs, and bigger need for automation, as we were developing an ever growing set of docs to enable and support server to server API integration to accept different payment methods and manage transactions. So we've got docs. What now? We need tech writers on board to create a link between engineering, product, and support teams. Because truthfully, tech writers are those people who make sure that docs are treated as an integral part of the final product or service, and they follow some key principles, which we distilled to be the following and to play a key difference when approaching your API references or technical docs management. So, what we as tech writers can help you do is, or stay up to date with, is accuracy and compliance, first of all, because surely you must be aligned with your industry regulations and make sure that your documentation is up to par. Another thing to keep in mind is agility, because you want to keep pace with your software development lifecycle and API integrations. Another thing is user centricity, meaning prioritizing ease of use and application of your product and how you interact with it. And obviously, collaboration, because tech writers work closely with cross functional teams across the board, and they get to know the product and service from inside out, and yet they keep the balance between technical complexity and trying to understand your developer experience, developer from your team and from cross teams, but also developer as a user of your API, of your integration documentation, and that's where tech writers step up. So, how did we actually started adopting DocOps? What did we do? We started by identifying our main pain points. How do we align more with our engineering roadmap or, let's say, software development lifecycle? How do we track updates and collaborate across teams more efficiently? What is consuming excessive resources in delivering and updating API docs? And surely you must know what's not working or lacking in your docs and seek feedback from teams closest to user issues. And that's why identifying frequently broken docs was one of the main points when we approached uh, automation and just doing the audit of how things worked, because you need to think about dogs as a living, breathing organism. You've got legacy dogs, bits and pieces from different subject matter experts, code snippets, tons and tons and dozens of them, actually different pages, files, all stored in repository, hopefully, or other places, and we need to know where it is and how it functions and what's not working. So that's the next thing that happened, or that we got into, is deciding what to automate. We started by and considering some of the key factors, such as initial need. We needed to assess the urgency and frequency of tasks, such as docs and code, sample reviews, editing and testing. Uh, Impact of automation, you need to be able to weigh the benefits of automation versus your manual efforts. Surely you cannot do this without estimating your available resources. And for that, you need to collaborate with developers, subject matter experts, and business owners to make accurate estimations of your efforts. And last but not least, budget and long term planning. Do you have the resources, including tech writer and other members of development teams or product teams or engineering teams? And do you have someone to drive those changes and advocate for those changes for automating processes that you already have? And that's what automation in action looks like. A lot of theory and how to go and how to implement this in action. So, what kicked things off for us is streamlining documentation deployment with version control tools in a fitting format. It could be Markdown or JSON, to ensure real time updates. It's virtually impossible, basically, in our days to approach automation without using any type or kind of tool that is already widely used and successful for software development process. That's why it's highly encouraged for tech writers to get on board and get closer to your developers and see what they're using and how are they commenting, updating, and pushing updates in the streamline, and how docs can be embedded, implemented, and aligned with the processes that already exist. Some of the actions after you set up your streamline deployment process would be identifying what's the easiest thing you can automate if it is broken, obviously. But some of the things that is more easier or more approachable to detect is, for instance, asking yourself, can we link code snippets in docs directly to the code base, reflecting real-time changes? That's a very, I would say that's a crucial thing, especially when your docs are growing, when the number of your API references is growing, and especially when there's a growing number of integrations between different APIs or teams or even third parties. Another thing that really helped to automate and kick things off and really reduce the amount of manual resources that we applied, mostly talking man hours and our span of sanity, was trying out linters to flag broken links, errors, or stylistic errors or questionable constructs in our docs. And last but not least is surely getting a developer or tech savvy writer on board to drive and advocate for adopting a version of DocOps that works for you, that fits your needs, resources, and ambitions. Therefore, whenever you're thinking of kicking things off or you already have some sort of automation of your sets of docs in place, you might be wondering if there's a bare minimum for DocOps. Are we doing enough? Are we doing too much? Because you might get to a point when you question if there's anything that you can be doing differently, or whenever your organization grows to the point where it's hard to stay in sync, when priorities change, when teams clash in terms of priorities and timeframes. Therefore, you might not have too much time or resources to dabble into too much planning. You need to be able to stay realistic, but still trying to be on the same page with improving lives of your teams and still keeping in line with tight deadlines, or let's say restrictions or limitations that just exist and cannot be removed. Therefore, still, there are things you can do, and I would say that it depends on the size of the documentation set, how many docs you already have, obviously the industry that you're in, your particular use case, and what your docs actually need to do. You should consider that there is no one size fits all solution. Therefore, it's all customizable and directly related and dependent on your existing structure. But less theory, more practice is the point that you're inevitably going to reach on your automation journey, but that's totally fine. So, what did we learn after trials and tribulations, after having our team of tech writers come to realization and conclusion that there are ways that we can step up our tech game, and there are things that we can borrow from developers that they use to get their work done. But how do we utilize those tools to bring the value and consistency of documentation at this in this at the on the same level with our other deliverables? I would say that some of the biggest things were embracing DocOps and automation in fintech documentation is about adapting to the demands of your rapidly evolving industry, even if it's not fintech, but something similar, or not similar at all, highly customizable. Obviously, you're gonna have some differences, but there are certain base points that you can start with. It's also about fostering collaboration, seeking feedback, and making strategic decisions on what to automate and what not. It's okay to let go sometimes and not strive to total perfection, as long as you have some base operations set up and working well for you. That's a good enough start, and it will surely align with your business needs and priorities. Also, I won't stop advocating and promoting the idea, and that was proving to be so effective in practice, that tech writers have a unique role in bridging the gap between technology and audience, and internally between different teams and business units. By aligning our efforts with DocOps principles and leveraging automation wisely, we can provide a better developer experience, stay compliant with regulations, and keep up with the ever changing fintech landscape. And on top of all the technicality and complexity and your expertise and your team's expertise, you need your need and ability to automate directly correlates with your structure, your team structure and company structure, available resources, and collaboration level between teams. Because one of the things that I learned throughout my journey in tech writing and developer experience and working with APIs and engineering teams is that surely we have metrics and we have tools, but it's impossible to get things going or implement new things if different team members from different departments um, are not empathetic towards each other's work or ways of working, and therefore lack of visibility of their ways of working can be the biggest constraint and the biggest obstacle on your way to automating anything. Therefore, once your team or your organization starts to grow, it's important for everyone's sake and for business sake to promote collaboration and empathetic uh, ways of working, which will allow for more visibility and more acceptance of what you're trying to implement. I would say that that would be main things that I wanted to share with you today. So that would be all for today, folks. But let's keep the discussion going. Um, the world of technical communication is so much more advanced and empathetic and collaborative than it was even 5, 7, 10 years ago. That's why we need more passionate people on board who will care for to streamline the overall developer experience and not just one technical side of it. That's why I think that fostering developer and tech writing collaboration is so important and has proven to be and has proven to be resourceful and bring great results in the end. So stay connected. Hope to see you all during next sessions and next years. Let's keep the APIs going. And thanks again for joining us today.